Welcome to Hoystory on Air, Season 1, Episode 23, 22, something like that. I'll get it right in the metadata when it goes out. It is December 15th, 2025, Monday. We had a pretty crummy weekend. Lots of bad stuff happened. Let's go over these because we got a couple of mass shootings. I'm not sure if the first one classifies as such because although we use that terminology a little loosely. 2 killed, 9 injured in Brown University shooting. Mohammed Aziz Zokov and Ella Cook. Ella Cook was the vice president of the College Republican Club. So, that happened Saturday. Studying or something. I don't know, some review thing. They were searching for a gunman. They found somebody and then released him. The odd thing is that they said, we have this person of interest, and then they went and released him after about 12 hours. Oops, wrong person, I guess. But they also released the guy's name. He was from Wisconsin. They released his name, his picture, that sort of stuff got out there. And he apparently surprised, has absolutely nothing to do with it. So lack of competence. Oh, we found a guy in a hotel room who has a couple of guns. They've released some photos which are complete, who they think the shooter is. They're completely useless. Photos and some video. The person's bundled up. It's cold in Rhode Island in December. You can't see any of their face. You kind of see what they're wearing. It's pretty apparent that this was, though I haven't seen it said yet, it doesn't look like he's got a rifle or a shotgun. So this was probably done with a handgun, in all likelihood. But then we get some stupid from the media. Of course, we got to fill air. We got to fill airtime, right? So this is what we get from CNN, who used to have Stephen Gutowski of The Reload as a paid contributor who they could go to for these things. But instead, they've got this guy who's as sharp as a bag of hammers. I'm going to play this video. Just it may, for some reason, sometimes videos the audio comes out fine, but the video doesn't. So I'm going to try and make sure you get the video. So let's see here.
At 4 o'clock in the morning, hit this hotel room in Coventry and took this man into custody. What we're told from law enforcement sources now is that they seized 2 firearms from this 24-year-old suspect. One of those firearms, we are told, was equipped with a laser sight device. This has significance because, number one, that's a fairly sophisticated device for a handgun where when you aim it, a red dot goes...
This guy is their chief law enforcement and intelligence officer. Maybe he retired in 1995 or 2000 maybe. But his expertise seems to be quite dated.
Where you want to target, and if you fire at that point, the bullet goes where the dot is. It's the kind of things used mostly by professionals, tactical people, military people. The other aspect of it, though, is it indicates that this was no random shooting. What we know is this individual traveled from the Midwest, apparently, obtained this hotel room, likely had to obtain...
The rest of this is kind of irrelevant. Lasers on firearms are not evidence of tactical skill or training or anything. He's making suppositions because this guy traveled from Wisconsin. Well, he's the wrong guy. So the rest of this we can kind of forget. But I'm going to use my technical expertise to explain to you that this is if you've got a laser on your gun, that's you're super advanced and you've had training. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Amazon. The first three are kind of fly-by-night. Crimson Trace is a respected brand, but you don't. No, no, no. It's all wrong. None of that's true. There are people with lasers on their guns. There are people without lasers on their guns. Do lasers help? Yes. Is that a good thing in a self-defense situation? Yes, that's a good thing. You want to hit what you're aiming for. Too often, a lot of these arguments, especially gun control states like California give, is, oh, well, this makes the gun more accurate. Lasers, a pistol grip, ergonomics of holding a gun this way as opposed to kind of holding it this way, makes it more deadly because it's easier to handle and you're more accurate. In a self-defense situation, you want to be more accurate. That's just all there is to it. Don't trust the media. I mean, it's just disappointing. A few other things on this Brown University shooting, ladies and gentlemen. It is a gun-free zone. Firearms are prohibited on campus, so you're not going to have anyone there, any student or teacher being able to defend themselves. That's why a lot of schools are targets of these attacks. People who want to do mass shootings target places where they're going to be able to make it mass, where there aren't going to be people with guns. So the campus bans the guns. That did a whole lot of good. Gifford's Law Center gives Rhode Island an A-. Still behind California and RA, but gives them an A- on their gun laws. That worked well, too. Things Rhode Island are missing: bulk firearm purchase restrictions, probably not an issue here. Handgun design safety standards. Those are things like a loaded magazine or loaded chamber indicator and a magazine disconnect safety. Generally things that they require us to get here in California that are useless. They don't make the gun safer. They don't. And local authority to regulate firearms. Well, Brown University regulates firearms on its campus. It's a no-no. The only people on campus who can have firearms are cops, campus police, and in the part I read on their website, visiting dignitaries with security services can petition for an exemption. So if you are defending Salman Rushdie and he's coming to campus with armed security, you can work that out ahead of time where his security can have a firearm. But otherwise, no. This was interesting to me because they haven't caught the Brown University shooter. Usually when you've got these mass shooting situations, part of it is the shooter either wants to be caught or wants to be killed. I mean, it's almost, a suicide by cop. You want to make a name for yourself. Getting away with it is relatively rare. Amy Swearer, who's a senior legal fellow at Heritage, she is kind of their gun policy expert at the Heritage Foundation. Righteous lady. She does she compiles their list of self-defense, handgun self-defense cases. But she had some interesting observations with regard to this. She said, "For all that we don't know about the Brown shooting, what we do know leads me strongly to suspect the following. This was most likely an ideologically motivated attack. What ideology precisely motivated is nowhere close to being answered. It could still very well be an act of anti-Semitism directed at the class of a prominent Jewish professor." That's the room that got shot up. "There is some evidence that perhaps it was targeted against conservative students." Again, because the female victim was the VP of the campus Republican club. "Or it could be some insane, the lizard people have taken over higher ed and must be stopped thing. But it doesn't fit the mold of a traditional nihilistic school shooting, which typically ends with a suicide or the perpetrator's death. Even in situations like Parkland, where the perpetrator escaped immediate detention, the escape wasn't the original plan. It was a spur-of-a-moment modification, which is why the Parkland shooter was pretty quickly caught. The Brown shooter, however, seems to have clearly to have devised and fairly well executed an exit plan. 2. Alternatively, this could be something we really haven't seen before, but that I've feared might be a natural development to the attention-seeking notoriety shooter. Someone whose goal is to prove he's smarter than the rest by evading capture, also perhaps by committing multiple subsequent mass shootings. That should scare us a bit. And the fact that, what you got calls for almost immediately were, we need tougher gun laws, despite, see previous slides, they've got an A- in Rhode Island. They got to be tougher. They've always got to be tough. We respect the Second Amendment, but we need tougher, common sense gun control. Same tune, different day, doesn't change, doesn't fix anything. Regardless of whether it's one or two, the reality is that I wouldn't be shocked if this turns into a string of actual or attempted shootings by the same individual. I hate everything about this conclusion, but I find it a logical and likely one. The successful execution of an exit plan suggests to me that this is someone who, though clearly not mentally well, still has control of his higher level mental faculties. In other words, he likely didn't just snap under a psychotic break. Think more Boston bombing suspects than a Navy Yard shooter, which also reinforces suspicions 1, 2, and 3. I too hope she's wrong, but she may be right. We'll see. I would hate for this guy to be able to do multiples of these. And where you are in the most danger, ladies and gentlemen, residents of Rhode Island, are in gun-free zones. That's where you're in the most danger. If it's a gun-free zone, that's where this person is going to target, because he can get away with it. If he's quick enough about it, police can't respond. He's in no danger from law-abiding concealed carry holders because they won't have their gun on them because it's a gun-free zone. Keep tracking this here. I hope they catch this guy. We'll see. Next segment. The number 2 tragic, horrible thing that happened over the weekend was at Bondi Beach in Australia. So we had 2 apparently radicalized Muslims took long guns where they were celebrating the first night of Hanukkah and started shooting. This is from the New York Times report. Gunman father-son pair, 50 and 24 years old. I guess the family that slays together stays together. That was probably tasteless, but geez. The older one was shot and killed. 14 dead at the scene. 2 other victims, including a 10-year-old girl who had been taken to hospitals, died there. 10 minutes of gunfire. And we'll show you some video of it. There's one guy who's apparently also Muslim, or at least he's of kind of Arab-type descent. Not clear on whether he's actually kind of a practicing Muslim or not. Was kind of one of the heroes of this. He charged in unarmed because it's Australia and they want you unarmed. Charged in and stopped this. So let's take a look at this. Warning, graphic content. It's not like a Hollywood movie. So if you're squeamish about blood, there's not much to see there other than to kind of realize that when they're shooting, people are getting wounded and killed. So. Note that he kind of put the gun down there once he's got the taken away from this guy, and he's far enough away he feels safe. It'd be one thing, maybe he doesn't know how to fire the gun, because this guy certainly deserves getting shot. He got killed by cops anyways, minutes later. But in this sort of situation, you really don't want to be seen holding a gun when the cops arrive. So, reasonably smart move.
Le mec est hyper courageux. Oh. En gros, il a récupéré l'arme du mec qui... Tu sais, il l'avait pris dans sa main là. Oui, oui, j'ai vu.
That last part is apparently the good guy getting shot in the arm. He was shot by these jerks. Australia famously has big gun control laws. Lots of gun control laws, right? Didn't stop this. Note the proverbial mother insists son is a good boy. Yeah, well, we don't trust you. And obviously not. But that's the sort of thing you get. Saw this online. This is predictable as the day is long. So this was originally up on X in Arabic. This is the translation. Zionist Mossad fingerprints in Sydney. Place, time, and method of the Sydney attack achieved exactly what Netanyahu wants before his visit to America. The Sydney attack will provide a set of images that Netanyahu will carry with him to Miami and distribute to Jewish communities in America and the world. And here lies the secret of the timing. 10 days before Netanyahu's visit to America, a visit whose primary goal will be to exonerate the Zionist entity from genocide and killing of children in Gaza, and from continuing the siege, starvation, and killing despite the ceasefire and the disruption of the transition to the second phase. Netanyahu will use these images to flood the media and social media with the narrative that the Jews are the victims. Now, why would I entertain this bit of BS and even bring it up on this show? I mean, because it should be fairly obvious. We got lots of nutcases in the world. And this is just a nutcase. So why, Matt, why are you bringing up a nutcase? Well, because of this. Palestinian journalist, political analyst, BBC World Correspondent. He used to be the BBC World Correspondent. The British Broadcasting Corporation hired this guy to cover Gaza. Do you think you were getting if you followed BBC and its reporting on Gaza, and this guy is in charge, you think you were getting an accurate picture of what's going on? No way. Yeah, no, it's not. So just so you get an idea of what some of the mainstream reporting out of the Middle East and on, frankly, Islamic terrorism, jihadism, or whatnot is. This is some of the people who are trying to sell lies, and they're employed by what most would consider reputable news media outlets. My third segment today is going to be on idiot politicians. But this idiot politician is more tied to this story today than the other stuff we've got, so I wanted to kind of keep it all together. So our idiot politician today is Adam Kinzinger, the former Republican representative who's now angry at everything, not particularly bright either. Notice how the disarmed Jews couldn't defend themselves. This is Mark Delbridge pointing this out. Would have been less deaths if they could. Yes. If you saw these two guys, they're largely not worried about incoming fire. I mean, that guy, before he got charged by the hero, he's not taking cover. He's standing out in the open taking pot shots at people. He's not doing that if people are firing back. And if people are firing back at you, you're not aiming as well because you got to keep your head down. Just the facts of life. So Adam Kinzinger decides to jump in here with his intelligence and wit and brains. So let's assume people could have had a pistol carry. At least one shooter was on a bridge. Now assume he would have had an AR-15, which he didn't. One of these was obviously a bolt-action rifle. I don't think either of these were semi-automatic, really. I think one was bolt-action. I think one was lever action. And those things reload relatively slowly. But again, if you're not worried about anybody shooting at you, take your time. Now assume he would have had an AR-15, which he would have if no gun control. No chance a pistol defeats that from a distance. I'm all for concealed carry, but let's not be honest here. No, he's not for concealed carry. That's the lip sync. That's the I support the Second Amendment line. He's not. Because you let people conceal carry. There has been one case where I can think of where at least taking pot shots at the shooter, forcing him to keep his head down, forcing him to take more time between shots, which would lead to fewer dead and more time for the police to hopefully respond, would have been the case, and that was the Vegas shooting, where the guy was up in a hotel room firing down on the range. In that case, concealed carry, you're right, has no chance. This case, if people had handguns, if there was a decent number of, I think in most of the United States, about 10% of people carry handguns every day, or at least often. Get CCWs. In most states, when you had to get a CCW license, around 10% of the people got one. Now that the majority of states are constitutional carry, the number may be even higher because you probably dissuaded some people who could legally carry from carrying in those sorts of situations because just going through the paperwork is a big pain in the butt. Mark Delbridge responds with the Elisha Dicken case. This was 2022. 3 people were killed in this mall in Greenwood, Indiana. But it would have been a lot more had this 20-year-old, or Dicken, 22-year-old man carrying a handgun, he's a good shot, 40 yards away, 10 rounds, hit him 8 times, didn't hit any bystanders, stopped it. Usually the definition of a mass shooting is 4 or more dead, not including the shooter. Here only 3 innocent people died. Many more would have if not for Dicken. So it happens. It happens more often than gun control advocates and even the government would like to admit. I encourage you to go to the Crime Prevention Research Center, CPRC, I think. Look it up, Crime Prevention Research Center. John Lott there has done a lot of study on this and found numerous cases that the FBI basically refuses to acknowledge of concealed carry holders, regular citizens stopping mass shootings. So it happens. That's awesome. As I said, I'm a concealed carry advocate. Don't pretend every shooting here ends like that. No, every shooting doesn't. But some do, and some lives are saved. And I don't know what that number is. It's impossible to know what that number is. But Adam Kinzinger wants to get out there and just dump on the supposed right that he wants to pretend he supports. Don't buy it. He's a fraud. The other situation we had at Bondi Beach down there in Australia, apparently, is the similar ones we had to with Uvalde, Texas school shooting, and the Parkland school shooting. You had cops. Apparently there were several on scene, 4 policemen, and they're not firing back. Now, I'm not sure if these are like British policemen who don't carry firearms, too many of them. No, they give that's special people that carry firearms. But, the way that the protests and stuff you've had, the rising anti-Semitism you've had in Australia as they have imported people from the Middle East, as that's been rising, you wonder why they didn't have more security and why they didn't have security there, more police there with firearms. I mean, you look at this picture here and I don't see the guns. They could be up here. Usually they're on the waist. If you got a chest rig, you might have it on your chest. They don't have it there. I'm not sure that either of these people is armed. I just don't know. But again, it doesn't matter if you've got if you don't have a rifle, if all you've got is a handgun. You can keep them pinned down. Start shooting back. It gives people more time to escape. It gives your backup more time to get there. And you save people's lives. And this got a couple old sayings. When you need police right now, when seconds count, cops are minutes away. At best. Some places they're longer, farther away than that in both distance and time. You are your own first responder. So you had cops apparently not fighting back, not trying to pin them down, hiding like every other victim when, in theory, they should have guns. Don't know if they did, and if they didn't, I'll have some grace. You don't have to. If you're a cop and you're unarmed, well, you shouldn't be an unarmed cop, but it shouldn't require you to suicide, basically, by charging these guys. But when all you've got's a hammer in Australia, everything looks like a nail. Australia did tighten gun laws. That's another thing to note here. Look at these pictures. At least the two on the left side of this guy don't appear to be carrying firearms. Really useful. Australian leaders promised Monday to immediately overhaul already tough gun control laws. At least 15 people died in the attack. Yeah. This is interesting from the article. Andrew Hemming, an expert in criminal law at the University of Southern Queensland, said Australia's gun laws have weakened since the Port Arthur incident, and not only has the number of licensed firearms increased to about 4 million, but so has the concentration of ownership to about 4 guns per person. Hemming said gun ownership is rising in urban areas. It's not always clear how thorough background checks really are, or whether checks are made to see if the licensed weapon has been modified. Hemming says it's his understanding that the deceased suspect held a license for 6 years with no issues. It's very difficult to stop an incident of this kind when apparently there were no red flags. Except there apparently were red flags. I think he's talking, the deceased suspect, that's the father. The son had been investigated by police there in 2019. Son was 24, so this would have been 6 years ago when he was 18, and they determined that he did not pose a threat at that point in time. Maybe I should have kept a closer eye on him, because he certainly did this past weekend. Australia's gun laws have disarmed people that weren't a problem. The criminals kept their guns. The criminals did not turn them in. And then you got situations like this. And again, who's suffering here? The people whose rights were taken away. And so we didn't succeed in stopping these things when we took innocent people's rights away. Let's hit innocent people again. It's the old Monty Python sketch. For those of you who have not seen it, You should check out the Dead Bishop sketch. Basically, they find who's been killing bishops, and the guy says it's fair cop, which is the American equivalent of "you got me," but society is to blame, and then the police go and arrest everyone else except the person who did the shooting. Yeah. Costas Moros, who's with the Second Amendment Foundation now, used to be with Michelle and Associates, points out, people say, Australia has, but this is far fewer shootings in Australia than there are in America, blah, blah, blah. Well, the numbers are different. People really fail to grasp population differences when comparing rare events. And I did this. This is true. And it's obviously true. Several years ago, I was on the Dave Congleton show, and we were talking about a shooting at the time. And I told him, it's like, we aren't that different. And it's true. We aren't that different than Europe and other countries when it comes to these sorts of terrorist event, public mass attacks. Our numbers get juiced a little because of gang violence between gangs, and sometimes that catches innocent people in the crossfire. But if you were to take out suicides and you were to take out gang violence, mass shooting incidents and the overall homicides are not too different between us and a lot of Europe. It's certainly better than Mexico. But this is something that you often see. It says, I'm already seeing some deflecting from Australia's mass shooting by arguing, well, this sort of attack is far more rare in Australia, so therefore gun control works. Indeed, they've had very few mass shootings since they cracked down on guns after the Port Arthur attack in the 90s. Let's take a look. We'll define mass shootings as Mother Jones does, Left Wing magazine. A shooting that leaves at least 3 dead but excludes gang violence or domestic violence. Since 2000, and again, they did these gun buybacks in the 90s. Australia has had 4 mass shootings that meet that criteria. As I've noted, I've excluded a variety of mass killings of a domestic nature. That'd be like murder, suicides in families, those sorts of things. And also shootings that fell just short of the 3 dead criteria, like the Monash University shooting of 2002 that left 2 dead and 5 injured. The United States in that same time frame has had 127 mass shootings. Wow, 4 versus 127. That must mean gun control totally works and the U.S. could solve mass shootings by copying Australia, right? No, you are forgetting population differences. We need to factor in the rate of these events. Australia has a population of 27.5 million people. The United States has a population of about 342 million people. We have 12.5 times as many people as Australia does. When we divide our mass shooting tally by 12.5 to account for that population difference, the difference is no longer 4 versus 127, it's about 4 versus 10. Australia does better than we do, but not by nearly as much as people think. By having over 300 million people, there are just many more opportunities for aberrant attacks like these to happen. And the news media gives them wide coverage each time, making them feel more common. But if we had an Australia-sized population, instead of happening a handful of times each year, they would happen about once every 2.5 years. And of course, Australia also had very few mass shootings before Port Arthur, too. And that gets glossed over. As today's attack proved by being the worst shooting since Port Arthur, as of the last count, 12 dead, now we're up to 16, I believe, and 29 injured. I think that number is 40. No matter how strict your laws, someone determined to carry out an attack will manage. Australia has also seen attacks by other methods, like a 2017 car attack that killed 6 and injured 27, and a 2011 arson attack that killed 11. Evil people will do evil things. Does a gun make it easier? Not sure if it's easier than a car attack. Drive down a crowded sidewalk in a marketplace or something like that. Arson attacks, same sort of thing. Charles C.W. Cook over at National Review makes a similar note. Says the gun violence archive numbers you will see everywhere totally deranged conversations on mass shootings. Each year, the Gun Violence Archive claims that in that year alone, there were 6 times more mass shootings than have happened in all American history, per FBI data, and the press prints it. Don't take my word for it. Here's anti-gun Mother Jones explaining the ruse. In the year it covered, the GVA claimed there had been 355 mass shootings. The actual number was 4. This lie, which is dutifully reprinted in the Times, meaning the New York Times, at CNN, by the BBC, and almost every international outlet, makes it impossible to have a normal conversation. It would be like debating taxes when everyone had been told the lowest rate was 3,000%. And it especially makes it impossible to have conversations about, say, Australia's laws, because the GVA misled people compare the actual numbers in that country to the completely fake, off by a factor of 90 numbers in the US. Pointless. I'm of the view that Australia's changes didn't do much at all, except possibly reduce suicides a little. There are actually twice as many guns in Australia now as there were in 2001, but it's hard to debate amidst a sea of statistical nonsense. You know all my views on these issues, but I've probably written and spoken a million words on it. But if you made it this far, whatever your view, please know that if you see the Gun Violence Archive in a piece, you should ignore it and question the author's grasp of the topic. He's absolutely right. You'll also note that they'll show charts where after they passed this gun buyback in Australia, which was really a forced confiscation. The government never buys back guns because the government doesn't sell the guns in the first place. So it's a misnomer to call it a gun buyback. But they'll show you this, oh, look how, gun crime tapered off after they passed those gun control laws in Australia. Well, if you go back before, you'll see it's a downward slope that basically the gun confiscation didn't change the trajectory that it was going on anyways. Port Arthur was an aberration. This was an aberration. It's tragic. And it's tragic that Jews in Australia will not be able to carry around guns to protect themselves because the government isn't. And we'll see what happens down there. But people determined to do evil are going to do evil. And you can't always stop them ahead of time. It's sad that we need more security around these events, and I think probably the thing that's going to come out about this as they look into it is how blinkered Australian security services, whether it's police or their equivalent of MI5 or MI6 or the FBI or whatever, how lackadaisical they were in understanding that they got an anti-Semitism problem in their country, and you're going to have to protect the Jews. Be nice if you let them protect themselves, but you can't pretend that they're going to be able to protest peacefully or celebrate peacefully or do anything peacefully because you've imported a problem. That's an immigration topic for another day. Final segment. Dumb politicians. Dumb, obnoxious politicians. We're going to start off with a Democrat, but frankly, most of this has to do with our esteemed president, his orangeness himself, Donald Trump. But let's get the Democrat out of the way first. So here's Senator Chuck Schumer. He's called a press conference. He's going to talk about the shootings at Brown University and in Australia. But first,
the terrible shooting in Sydney, Australia. Okay? So, and first, of course, as I always say, no matter what, go Bills. They beat the Patriots today. It's a big deal.
dumb. Seriously? I'm sorry people have been killed, but go Bills! I mean, I can't explain this. I can't. It's tasteless, it's out of touch, and it's just stupid. And he's one of the, in theory, better politicians. I mean, he's not Ilhan Omar, who married her brother to get him residency here in the United States. He's not this Graham Plattner guy up in Maine who had the Totenkopf tattoo and is communist, but he was a big fan of Hitler or something. I don't know. It's just wow. I don't know. Rob Reiner and his wife were murdered yesterday, or their bodies were found yesterday. I don't know when the actual time of death was. Yesterday afternoon. Rob Reiner directed some great films. He was funny in Archie Bunker's Place. Is that what it was called? Archie Bunker's Place? I don't remember. Mercy, it was funny. Funny guy, good sense of humor. He's a lefty. Most of them are. You can just kind of ignore him when he's, spouting that stuff. I did. I appreciated his movies. A Few Good Men, great film. Princess Bride, great. Stand By Me. He made, this is Spinal Tap from the cap he's wearing. He made some great films. He was apparently killed by his son. It says in this article here that he's being held on $4 million bail. I heard an update since I took this screenshot that says that's been changed to no bail. So we'll see how this all turns out, but tragic. When people on the left die, whether it's of natural causes or of foul play or whatever, I don't celebrate anybody's death. Usually if I've got bad things to say about them, and sometimes I do, just let days pass. You don't have to be out there first bashing them. Which brings us to the President of the United States, who, despite proclaiming to be a Christian, shows no signs of it. This is what he posted on Truth Social. This is reposted by an official White House account. Rapid Response 47 is their official account on X/Twitter. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump and his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace. You didn't have to do this. The first sentence is great. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. And then the last sentence is fine too. May Rob and Michelle rest in peace. Everything else in between, keep your mouth shut. Seriously. I mean, he claims to be a Christian. He shows no signs of it. By your fruits, they will know you. I don't get the indication that anybody knows him. This and the idea that his son, again, apparently his son Nick has been arrested for this. Is Nick do you really want to claim Nick as a MAGA fan, and that MAGA fans are killing Hollywood directors? Because I mean, what's the logic here? There isn't none. He's a petulant little Donald J. Trump is the little kid in the Twilight Zone that sends, he's going to send you into the cornfield. I mean, it's that type of mentality. Why? Why do this? Just dumb, 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 dumb. I used to joke that they banned Trump from Twitter/X near the end of his first administration. I want to say it's near the end of the first. I'm not sure whether it was after he lost re-election to Biden, but it was around that time. And I used to joke that, if they'd have banned him 3 years earlier, he would have won re-election. Because people just got sick and tired of this crap. This is. There's a certain segment of people who voted for this guy because because of all the crap Biden did that was worse. I won't say worse, different. Because of the border crisis and all these other things. It's like, please just be normal. And Trump can't help it. He can't help it. They're not helping. Of course, he's a lame dunk, so he doesn't need to worry about possible re-election because he's banned from that. I have a feeling he talks about it sometimes just to get people riled up. But this didn't need to be done. We're going to go on to more stupid. Still Trump. This is a big MAGA guy on Twitter. I don't follow him, but for some reason this pops into my feed occasionally. I think it's because other people kind of quote this guy. This is from December 14th, so this was posted online yesterday. I think these comments were actually Saturday. Trump just took a massive victory lap on the experts. Because of the tariffs, we've taken in $18 trillion. There's never been anything like it. The Biden administration took in less than $1 trillion in 4 years. We took in more than $18 trillion in 10 months. That's good. Tariffs are printing money, billions pouring in while protecting American jobs. The doomsayers were dead wrong. Here's him actually saying it. Let's take a look at this.
Except because without the November 5th election, you would have had a president that didn't have the courage to use tariffs the way they should be used. And because of the tariffs, we've taken in more than think of this, $18 trillion. There's never been anything like it. As an example, the previous administration, Sleepy Joe Biden, took in less than $1 trillion in 4 years. We took in more than $18 trillion in 10 months. I'd say that's pretty good, right? I'd say that's pretty good. And if you go back into history, there's never been a country that's taken in more than $3 trillion.
You wonder about this. I mean, he's reminiscent of Steve Carell's character in Anchorman. Lamp. I love Lamp. Are you just saying that you love things that you see? I love Lamp. I mean, $18 trillion. Have we really brought in $18 trillion? This is from the source, the Congressional Budget Office, January through September, so that's 9 months. It's not the 10 months. So was $178 billion in tariff income. The federal budget deficit was $1.8 trillion. So less than a tenth of just the budget deficit. It's not 18 trillion. 178 billion. And frankly, we pay those tariffs. It's why things are more expensive. It's why he's talking about, a $2,000 tariff refund. And, we're going to bail out farmers because the tariffs have, made it harder for them to sell their goods. 18 trillion. He's just making it up. And you've got a certain percentage of the population that just will believe anything the man says, and he's a notorious liar and fabulist, especially about his own stuff. $18 trillion. Source JP Morgan Asset Management. So total federal 2025 budget was $7 trillion. Everything the U.S. spent last year was $7 trillion. Or the fiscal year. $7 trillion. And he's claiming we got $18 trillion just from tariffs. Actually, you see the little number there. There's a little blue number. That little blue, tiny little thing on the right, tariffs. 1%. At that time, it was $80 billion. That was fiscal year. These numbers are playing a little bit because fiscal year versus calendar year versus, But one thing should be clear. Nowhere close to $18 trillion. If tariffs were bringing in $18 trillion, we'd have put a serious dent in this. I took this screenshot earlier today. If you go there, it continues to count up second by second. But earlier today, we were at $38 trillion in national debt. $7 trillion was the budget last year. That minus 8, or 18 minus 7, that leaves 11. This thing should have dropped down to $27 trillion just because of his wonderful tariffs. They didn't. Why not? Because he's full of crap. And if you point this out, you get people on Twitter, oh, you just don't understand. He's playing 4D chess and blah, 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 blah. All the polling show he's losing people. People wanted the border controlled. They wanted especially criminals sent back where they came from. He's not doing, he got the border under control. He is, ICE has not been doing a good job from a public relations standpoint as far as getting a lot of these people out of the country. The Democrats are lying on the other side. Apparently everybody's a saint. We have to have these. It's almost eerie sometimes the way the Democrats talk about illegal immigration. All we need, because these are jobs the Americans won't do, and we need them to pick our fruit and blah, 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 blah. And it's very reminiscent of how slave owners talked about slaves before the Civil War. He's just, I always hire the best people. He doesn't hire the best people. He doesn't. He's never hired the best people. Demonstrated by his first term, and it's not much better the second term. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Trust but verify. Reagan was right about that. Except in this case, I don't even think you can trust him. He says whatever sounds good, and it's such bullshit. Excuse my French. I'm sorry. Seriously, he said it. 18 trillion. No, it's been 80 billion. Or if you go by this number, 178 billion. You're paying those taxes. Somebody's pointing out, this is 600% difference between what he's claimed and what we've actually brought in. Think about that. Think about if you bought a car from overseas, what that car would now cost with a 600% tariff on it. $40,000 car? Now it's 2.4 million. Did I get the number right? That's about what it's got to be. Just doing the math in my head, which may be dangerous because I was a journalist. But that's how far off he is. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a bad weekend. It was a bad weekend. I hope we don't have many more like that. It'd be nice if we could trust our politicians. We can't trust either party, frankly. They both lie. I'll have more to talk about this in coming days, but the whole brouhaha over the Obamacare subsidies. Obamacare was supposed to bring insurance costs down. Instead, it goosed them through the roof. It was not, I mean, the Democrats should be forced to confess Obamacare didn't work before they extend these subsidies even another day. And Congress should do something to fix it. And that is not just continuing to throw money at it. More on that in the coming days. Again, thank you for joining me. Appreciate you spending some time here. I don't know how long this is, how long I've been on. What's it say? Doesn't say. I'll have to look later. At least I'm not seeing it right away. Thanks for joining me. Again, please follow me on Substack, Twitter/X, Facebook, YouTube. Tell your friends, because you're not going to get the MAGA line. I'm going to tell you the truth as best I can, and that's about both parties. And it's possible to be an honest conservative and cover this sort of stuff. You don't have to. You can criticize Trump sometimes. You can criticize Chuck Schumer. Frankly, every politician deserves to be criticized just because they're a politician. The joke from the movie The Paper, where Jason Alexander's character, who's apparently the city parking commissioner or whatnot, says, why are you picking on me? And Randy Quaid's character, who's the columnist, says, you worked for the city. It was your turn. Well, if you work for the government, it's your turn. And that'll continue to happen here. Again, thanks for joining me. See you tomorrow, hopefully. Bye.